You don't always have to spend money to have a date night.
No.
Like, you can do date night at home for free. You don't have to spend money.
Welcome to This Beautiful Struggle.
I'm excited about it.
We finally have gotten to a point where we're just ready to share unfiltered our lives. Infertility is tough. Adoption is tough. But then even talking about like me losing my dad, you losing your mom within a couple of years of each other, our kids losing grandparents, your career and my career, and then making the ultimate decision to move to Nevada and what that looks like, moving away from all of your friends and family and all of those things.
Hopefully people can resonate with our story and just letting people know that they're not alone.
It's not the norm, and infertility is something that people don't ever want to talk about. Our family is such a hot mess, Express. I mean, this is just what it is, right? Like, so we don't have to front anymore.
It's been a long time coming.
Welcome back to This Beautiful Struggle. I'm Erin.
And I'm KC.
And today we're going to talk about all things communication. People always ask us, like, through all of the things that you guys have been through, how are you still together? I think that is like the number one thing. Or people ask me all the time, are you done yet? Like, or how do you know when, like, is divorce ever an option for you? And we're always like, no, I mean, we don't want to. But I feel like society kind of these days tells you reality TV paints this picture that marriage should be perfect. And when it's not, you should just get a divorce. You have like Kim Kardashian, who was married to Chris Humphries for like 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week. I don't know what it was. And then they're divorced. Next thing you know, or they're trying to annul their marriage but I just feel like this day and age, people get married and get divorced so fast. And we've touched upon this before, but I think that these are conversations that we need to normalize and have more often. So we're going to have that today.
Yeah, I think oftentimes society, it's so easy to get a divorce.
That's true.
It's extremely, we live in a society where you can get a no-fault divorce. You could just be like, I don't want to be married no more. Bam, divorce. Like, but you don't really have a reason. And then some of the reasons, it's oftentimes ridiculous.
Well, it's like, well, why did you get married? Yeah. When you took those vows, did you really mean those vows? Or through sickness and health till death do us part? Like,
no,
that means
they only
fight.
meant the health. They only meant richer. They didn't mean any of the sick or poor or any of the other stuff. They only meant good times.
Yeah. I think, what was funny was when we moved to Nevada, I realized how easy it is to get a divorce out here. Not that I was looking for myself or anything, but just knowing friends who've gone through the process of getting a divorce, I couldn't even believe it. Now I understand why it's sad, but people come to the state of Nevada, declare residency here, only now to file for divorce. Insane.
Yeah, that's sad. You just move in here just to get a divorce?
Yeah. So we read about all of the time. We listen to other podcasts. We have these conversations, and we're the people, some of you I'm sure will agree, and this might even be you as well, but we are those people that everyone comes to when they need advice, when they have questions. It's like,
I don't know why, though.
I don't know. We've turned into these like experts, and I think a lot of it is we're very open. I'm definitely super open, and I think you're coming to with being open as well, which is great because I think that like women naturally, because we're emotional human beings and men aren't known for being as emotional, but I think that these are conversations that are important to have. So, but one of the main things, actually not one of the main, a couple of things, it's always why do people get divorced? Money. Lack of or money troubles, communication, and then generally something like infidelity.
Yes.
Right? So thankfully, we haven't had any issues that I know of course, with infidelity. You have any issues with infidelity?
No. Why would you?
Just kidding. But yeah, we've been lucky enough to not have had those issues. And not lucky, I guess we've been committed enough to each other that we haven't had those issues, but we definitely have had money issues and struggles, highs, lows, like borderline, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How do we get out of this? And then definitely communication. I think communication is an issue that anyone faces no matter the type of relationship, but for sure in our marriage, we have had and continue to have communication issues, right?
Absolutely. I don't think that's something that goes away. I think it's just how you deal with them.
Yeah, totally.
Once you have them is the most important part.
Yeah.
because I mean, we both individuals, we have our own train of thought, and we both see things differently, and our vision and how we see things it comes from a lot of how we were raised.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, fertility. I didn't even think of
yeah,
that. A lot of
fertility,
couples,
too.
sometimes they divorce over fertility issues and things.
Yeah, I mean,
like
we've
that,
had friends who've divorced over fertility issues, and that's really sad. And I will say, and if you haven't listened to that episode where we kind of go into our fertility journey, then definitely jump on over and listen to that. But make sure you have tissues for that one because it's super emotional. But yeah, I mean, I think our fertility, which was at the very beginning of our marriage, could have broke us, but thankfully it didn't. And here we are today, 15 years later, to tell the story. So.
We've been together for 15 years.
Wait, has it been 15? I have to count.
No, we started dating in 2010.
Oh,
right?
we've been dating for 15 years. 15 years in August. It seems like it was yesterday, but I think that is kind of the important thing, right? Like to be able to like remember where you started, where you've been, and then where you are now, right? And so when we were talking in the last episode, about growth, I mean, gosh, we've grown so much. It's not even funny. And I think communication, when we think of communication, it's not just like, I think it's everything. I think that when you are married or in a relationship, you go through, when you take your individual life with your spouse's or significant other's individual life and you try and merge them together, there is going to be so much conflict naturally because, like you said, we're raised differently, have different views. I mean, I often say we don't agree on much. I mean, we agree on some things, but we definitely, when we fight, we are definitely like, I disagree. No, I disagree. I disagree. Right?
Well, I think we agree on a lot, but obviously, when you're in a fight, we're in a fight because we're disagreeing. I mean, if we weren't disagreeing, then we wouldn't be in a fight. But I think oftentimes it comes down to just not willing to compromise.
Totally.
And I think as you're in a relationship and as you evolve in that relationship, people change. Your spouse change. And I think sometimes you can get caught up in treating your spouse how they were 2 years ago. But 2 years have passed and they're now a different person. Yeah, they look the same, but they've changed. Their views on things have changed. So you can't treat your spouse the way you did 5 years ago today because those are two different people.
That's true.
So you have to evolve and you have to change with your spouse because as you evolve, your views, your opinions, your thoughts, and all of that changes too. And you can't expect like, oh, my spouse has changed. Well, of course your spouse has changed because they've evolved. They've gotten different.
Yeah,
no one stays the same. No one stays stagnant.
Or you shouldn't. You shouldn't want to stay stagnant for sure.
Things that I liked 5 years ago, I don't like now. Things that I didn't like 5 years ago, I might like now. So, I mean, people are going to change. You can't expect your spouse to, oh, you're not like how we was when we first started dating. Nobody is how they were when they first started dating. Like if that's the expectation that you expect your spouse to be the same like when you first started dating, then you're not going to be in a relationship very long because your spouse will change.
Yeah, I just think too, like when you think of for our dynamics, so when we first started dating, we both worked not 9 to 5s because we both worked in law enforcement. So we both worked 10 to 12-hour shifts and it was pretty intense with like trying to find time for one another. And I think that was the biggest thing, right? Like, I think we both had like Tuesday, Wednesday off, right? So at the end of the day, we didn't have kids. It was a lot easier for us to spend time with one another. I think it's common for people to get to a point where they're like, oh, it sucks I don't have weekends off, right? It doesn't matter if you work in medical, if you're working law enforcement, it doesn't matter what you do. I think a lot of people just get caught up in your circumstances and then feel like it's hard for you. And then before you know it, you're fighting over dumb stuff, right? I think for us, let's see, I stopped working. I got injured on the job and then I stopped working. And after you put all this pressure on me to quit, and I was still in real estate at that time, so I was still self-employed, but kind of balancing both. And then I guess what year was that? 2015?
I think it was the year before we got the kid.
So 2014.
No, 15. because we got the kids in 2016.
Okay. So, yeah, when I knew, like, I knew for me, the only reason that I worked at OPD was to meet you. Like, I realize now in my heart of hearts, I was in real estate. I got out of real estate. Well, I was still doing real estate, but the market had crashed. Then I was like, oh, I went to college to have this public relations dream. And at that point I had and thought that was the way. Because when you're in college, you don't really know it. You're thinking, you spend all this money on what you think you know for the future. But then I realized after the fact that I'm a hustler. Like, I'm meant to be self-employed. That's where I thrive. That's honestly what I love. And so I think after when I got hurt and I was going through my workers' comp, you were like, just quit. Just quit, Aaron. Just quit. And I'm like, no way, I'm not quitting. And you're like, just quit. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Like, not until I have some other things set up. And then finally I got to that point where you were like, just quit. And I was like, okay. And I remember, and now here we are. So what? That was, I think, 2015. And here we are 10 years later. And for those 10 years, I have been self-employed. And you've always been the consistent, and I've always been the extra, right? The extra, the fun, the vacation, all of those things. We get a lot of people who ask all of the time, like, how does that dynamic work? Either I get people who say to me all the time, well, my husband is not accepting of the fact that I'm self-employed. The money's all over the place. And I mean, that's just one of the things that, like, I can understand how that leads to division and fights and miscommunication and all of those things. But I think that we have done a really good job of balancing me being self-employed and you being our consistent, constant everything.
Yeah, I think it's good to have both. Not saying that you both can't be self-employed and go that route, but for us, like you said, me being the steady and then you being supplemental, it has worked out for us. And that's part of the reason why when I was working so hard, because I knew that there couldn't be any lapse in me getting a paycheck. Like, there had to be that every 2 weeks, there had to be money coming in, because obviously we got bills, we got mortgage, groceries, and all those things that come along with having a family. So I knew that we needed to have that steady, consistent income to support us.
I think it works really in our favor too, because I think the hardest part is when you have young kids and you are at home. It's like, as a mom, you want to be there, you want to raise your kids, or at least be at home with them for as long as possible. And I think as hard as it was, because I was also working full time, and working for yourself is definitely working more hours than you are working for someone else, because it's not, oh, I just have these days off, until you're really established. Can you get to a point where you're paying yourself a salary each month? But I think we get a lot of questions all of the time, again, of how did you make that work? And I think one of the best advice that I could give is just communication, right? Like, we knew that this was just our reality. And so we had to make sure that, like, we were communicating. I mean, there was a couple of years in there that we definitely had to seek therapy, marriage counseling, you know what I mean, to get through some of those moments where he would be at work for like insane hours and then get home, and then he would need his time to like decompress. But I'm like throwing kids at him because I've been working my business with the kids all day, pick up the kids from school, take them to school, have a crying baby at home, not having any support. I'm kind of doing it all by myself. And I remember that there was a lot of fighting that happened in between there of trying to figure out balance, you know what I mean, with parenting. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we're both working insane hours, but we're still mom and dad. And we still have a house that needs to be cleaned. We still have groceries that need to be bought. We still have all of those things. And I think I think for me, one of the best things that you have always done is you have never made me feel like my career choice or whatever business I had was not good enough. You always have made me feel like I don't have these expectations of you that because you're at home working, that you are now the housekeeper. You are now the person who's responsible for dinner. I think I had a lot of those expectations on myself, but you've never had those expectations of me. And I think that's hard when you're in a relationship where one person is working outside the home and the other person is working at home with little kids in the picture. I think that society, or even in some relationships, you have this unhealthy expectation that the person that is at home is responsible for all of the chores and everything as it relates to caring for the household. And you cannot go about life that way.
Right. No, I agree. I feel like that causes some grief, just dealing with that very issue that you're talking about. Because there were some times where I would come home and I felt like, well, I never told you that you had to have dinner ready, or that you had to clean the house, or that all these things had to be done. So I don't know why you're like upset with me, because I never said that you had to do any. I don't know where you got that from. So
I think there's this expectation, though, that when you would get home from work and then we wouldn't have dinner, it'd be like, okay, so what are we having for dinner? And so I think that I just used to be in my head and be like, oh, I guess he expected that I was going to do that. I mean, one thing that you never did, which was great, was, and I've talked to other women and know friends whose husbands would be like, why is the house a mess? And it's like, what do you mean, why is the house a mess? Because the house is a mess because I've been working. And every time I clean up, then your child comes and makes a mess. But I think when we just kind of think about our dynamic, those are things that like we had to really work through also in counseling. And like I said, like Casey never had that expectation of me. I more had that expectation of myself. And I feel like as women, we do. We take on all of that because society says that we are the ones who are supposed to care for our children. We are the ones who are supposed to clean the house and make the meals, and you know what I mean? But then nowadays, society also says that we can no longer live on, and it's not even society says, our mortgage says, and our taxes say that you can no longer live on a one income family unless, you know, that one income is substantial. I think at the end of the day, everyone's going to go through their own individual experiences and issues and fights and all of those things. I think when we talk about normalizing things, I think it is normal to fight. I think it is normal to argue. I think it's normal for you to be irritated with your significant other or spouse. I think it's normal to want time alone. And I think that's something that we've normalized in our marriage, right? Like we're not going to get along all of the time, and that's okay. The one thing that I will say that I love that we do, and I tell this to my friends or other people I'm talking to, is I feel like we are very good at like giving each other space. And I think it's important for you to have a life outside of your marriage, right? Like I love my time with you, but I love my time away from you as well. You know what I mean? Right. And I think it's important to have, for us, we have our family time where it's us and the girls. We have our date nights where it's just us. And then you have your time where it's just you. And then I have my time where it's just me. But then also you have your time where you have daddy-daughter time. And I have my time where it's mommy-daughter time. And I know that, you know, if you're listening, you're probably like, well, where in the world am I going to find that time? The reality is, if you want to live and have this fruitful marriage and relationship and family dynamic, you just have to make time, right? Like it's just a necessity.
Yeah. You make time what you want to make time for.
Exactly. And it's not that hard. Like I said, like we do a lot of date nights where we don't go anywhere. We're at home or we're in the backyard. We'll put the kids to bed and we'll be like, oh my God, do you want to get in the hot tub tonight? Great. Let's pour a glass of wine or get a drink. You know what I mean? And the best thing was, do you remember during COVID, the kids had their own individual rooms? This is when we lived in Concord. They had their own individual rooms. And then the extra room was the playroom. And the best thing that we did during COVID was to get rid of the playroom and turn that into the bar/adult lounge.
Yeah.
Because what did we do? Like even when neighbors and stuff would come over, friends would come over, that became like an adult space where we could be. The kids didn't need any more space, but we needed a space for us outside of our room. And so we had lots of date nights in that space.
And you don't always have to spend money to have a date night.
No.
Like you can do date night at home for free. You don't have to spend money.
No.
Yeah. But speaking of communication, time. So how do we communicate our time, like our schedules? Can you kind of go in how we do that?
So this is something that we actually used to fight about a lot because he would make plans and I wouldn't know that he had plans, and or I would make plans and he wouldn't know, and then that's an instant argument, right? So we finally developed, and this works for us, and it might not work for everyone, but for us, what has really worked is we use our calendars on our phones. And anytime it could be I'm going to go to coffee or I have a client or it doesn't matter. I'm putting that into my family calendar that I share with him. Anything that involves the kids where let's say Kaylin has a hitting appointment or Savannah has pitching or something, we put it so that the kids can see also their appointments. So we also hold them accountable as well. And I think that has really worked for us because I remember when you were working a lot of mandatory overtime, I'd be pissed. There would be so many fights that we would have because you'd be like, I'm working mandatory. And I'd be like, how was I supposed to know that? You never communicated that. And so I feel like this calendar we've been doing this now for what, like the past 10 years? At least.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less than that. But I feel like it has cleared up any arguments that we would have about schedules. I think that's one thing that we do not fight about at all.
Yeah. Because to be frank, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
You put it on the schedule and you can see that I've looked at it and I acknowledging that I saw this and it's been added to the schedule. So I know. So even if I do forget, I look on my phone, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I forgot, but clearly she told me it's on the schedule, so I should have known about it. So I can't be mad or I can't be upset or frustrated or whatever the feeling is. But it definitely has cleared up a lot of issues that we don't have because, hey, whenever I want to know something, are you free on this day? Okay, well, I don't see nothing on the schedule, so she must be free.
Yeah.
Or I must be free. Or we're free on this day, so let's plan something this day. We'll block it out. So it is, I highly suggest anyone who's having like time conflicts or scheduling conflicts or communication issues with just time and time management, I highly suggest that you guys have a joint calendar on your phones and you share your schedules with each other and you update them pretty much daily, depending on what happens. So there is no confusion. And there's no, oh, I didn't know about it, so now I'm upset.
And if the calendar is not the way that it works, there are definitely other methods that work too. Absolutely. But find something that works for you and then stick to it, right? And then hopefully that will eliminate any potential feuds in the future. So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just like you said, pick something that works for you because everybody's different and what works for us might not work for everybody. Right. And what works for them might not work for us. So as long as you and your spouse are okay with it, then you guys are golden.
Yeah, totally. All right. So let's wrap this one up. Let's give them maybe some things definitely some helpful tips, I would say, that would help communication. Let's focus on communication.
Okay.
What would you say your top? If you could give top advice to any of the fellas that were watching, what would that be?
Well, I will give the advice to the fellas, but this applies to the ladies and the gentlemen. Don't assume that your spouse knows what you're thinking or what you're planning because they do not. And if you assume they do, you are sadly mistaken, and it's going to lead to a conflict because
what do they say about assumptions?
Oh, I thought you knew. I didn't know. I don't know why you thought I knew because I didn't. But try not to make assumptions.
What do they say about assumptions?
Well, we all know what they say about assumptions.
What is that?
Oh, you make an ass out of yourself.
Make an ass out of yourself. Same applies all of the time. Don't assume. I agree.
Yeah, don't assume. Another thing would be to.
You want me to give one?
Oh, hold on. I got one more.
Go ahead.
Say what you mean and mean what you say. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. Don't say you're going to do something and then don't do it because once you've said that you're going to do it, you set that expectation. And now your spouse is going to expect you to do what you said. And if you don't do it, that's going to create a problem.
So what would you say? Because I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think that one thing that women really struggle with is my husband said that he was going to do XYZ, my handyman husband, and he hasn't done it yet. So, what would you say is a healthy expectation of time? Or do you feel like that is something that needs to be communicated to a man?
That I feel like that needs to be communicated.
So, if you need something to be done,
If this is for all the ladies, if you want your husband to do something and you have a specific time in which you want it completed by, you need to relay that information to him. You can't just say, "Hey, honey, can you do this?"
and
And,
expect
and then expect it to be done when you thought it was going to be done.
Because the reality is
he didn't
now,
know because you didn't tell him when you wanted it done by.
it'll take them about 6 months.
Yeah, and you can't expect them to know that you wanted it done by Thursday. Did you tell him you wanted it done by Thursday? No, then you can't be upset if it's not done by now. If you told him, "Hey, honey, I need you to do this because the toilet's leaking and I need you to have it done by Saturday," and Saturday goes by and he didn't do it, then that's a different story. But if you never told your spouse that you wanted something or that you needed something done by a specific date or time, then that's on you.
So give them a deadline. One thing that helped us is we had a honey-do list, and things that were pressing, I would say, and pressing was like within a week. Then that would be at the top of the list. And then if it was something that Casey wasn't able to do, he would say, "I'm not able to do this." And that was my green light to hire someone to do it. So that's one thing that has really helped us. Nowadays he's retired, so no excuses. But I mean, he's pretty handy. He finds things around the house that don't even need to be done that he fixes. So I don't have any complaints there for sure.
Sure.
Okay, what else?
Yeah.
So you said time, and then you said, oh, don't make assumptions.
Don't make assumptions. And if you say you're going to do something, do it. Mean what you say and say what you mean.
I think that's important too. Mean what you say. And that is related to almost everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I think a lot of the times, like in our relationships, we bite our tongues or we say things that we don't necessarily mean. And then my advice would be quick to apologize. Some advice that we got, I think, at I don't know if it was our engagement party or my bridal shower, or I'm not sure what it was, but it was never go to bed upset. And even though that's easier said than done, there are definitely nights that we go to bed upset. There are definitely nights that he will sleep in the guest bedroom or I will sleep in the guest bedroom or on the couch or whatever. That is going to happen, right? My biggest advice would be to right your wrongs, apologize even when you feel like you did nothing wrong. And more than anything, just keep those lines of communication open. Give each other the space that you need. I am someone who loves, like, I need a 10-minute cool off and then I can talk. Casey is someone, in my opinion, who needs a 24-hour cool off and then he can talk. It drives me crazy. But at the end of the day, if I force him to speak sooner than he's ready to speak, then it's going to end up in this big blowout. And it has before. So, yeah, just respecting everyone's boundaries and space, and just also realizing, that you are not perfect. Your spouse is not perfect. No one's perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We were all raised very differently. We all have different values, and it's just, we're different. We're different people, and God intended for us to be that way. So we should not have these expectations that your spouse is going to be exactly who you want your spouse to be. No, your spouse is going to be exactly who, God called him or her to be. And that's just that. And we shouldn't, my last thing that I'll say is we should not strive to change one another. That is the biggest thing that I have learned. I cannot change my husband. All I can do is change myself. And I would hope that he is doing everything that he can to, to grow and make those changes on his own. Me nagging him and telling him to change something is not going to make him change. If anything, that's going to push him away from me. And that's never my intention, because I want to be married to him. I don't want to push him towards infidelity or anything else or divorce. I want for him to recognize some things about himself that he needs to change. And then I want him to change. And then I want him to have those same expectations of me.
Oh, I agree.
Did we hit it all?
Those were bombs.
Those are our pillars.
Those were pillars. I mean, I could say some other stuff.
I think the biggest thing too, and this doesn't apply to everyone, is we have an amazing relationship with God, and we have a very tight spiritual relationship. We are that couple who prays together, who goes to church, and we both had those values instilled in us when we were younger. That is one area in our life that is pretty identical. And so we both think that it is so important to have the relationship with the Lord, and even for our children to have those relationships as well.
Absolutely.
And so God keeps us grounded and reminds us that we're not perfect, and that there is going to be trials, and that there are going to be tribulations. But at the end of the day, the end of the story is not written yet, right? And we have the opportunity to, I don't want to say write the end of the story, because he knows, but we do have that control over our lives. That makes sense.
Yeah. That's going to wrap up this episode, but we want to thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you watching. Please like, share, and rate. And if you want to connect with us, reach out to us on our website, thisbeautifulstruggle.com. And we look forward to hearing from you.